Never underestimate your ability to make a difference. Nihil ultra. Nothing is beyond. Truly, Ed Hathaway.
Well, that is how my first novel, Mediocre but Arrogant, ended. So yes, I did complete a novel, but what happens is that all of us have a novel inside us. Very few of us really started, and even fewer people actually complete it. So why do we not start a novel? What is there? What stops us? And what is that magic recipe? And to tell you about that, I have to tell you a little story. Many years back, I took a job and moved to Mumbai. And I had stepped there and, there was confusion at home. They were packing boxes and everything was, chaotic. I was unpacking a box of books, and in that, I actually noticed a gift wrapped book lying there for me. This was really intriguing. I mean, usually, when you get a gift, you open it right away and then you try and read it. And for me, I must instantly finish the book. So that's the compelling piece that I have. And I was really intrigued. So I looked at it. It was a beautifully wrapped book. It was light blue in color. I still remember it distinctly. But there was nothing which was actually written there which told me who had gifted it to me. And I just couldn't remember what the occasion could have been. So I thought, okay, let me remember what my dad used to tell me. He said that if you have a book, you must know it so well, you should have read it so many times, that even if you are blindfolded and you simply weigh the book, you should be able to say, I think this feels like so-and-so book. So you can imagine what childhood I went through. And then I thought I should try that out. And I tried to weigh it. It didn't feel like any of the books that I ever read. So I was wondering what I should do. Then I thought it's the most obvious thing. Let's remove the wrapper and find out what is inside. And so I opened the wrapper. And inside, what I saw was something very different from what I expected. It wasn't a book. It was actually a blank notebook. So I sort of opened that, beautifully bound. It was black hardcover and it had red corners out there. Beautiful notebook. I looked at that and I said, wow, I mean, what kind of a present is that? Why did somebody gift me a blank notebook? So I took it and I went up to my bookshelf and tucked it there. And I said, okay, thank you very much. And I left it there. And then, actually, sometimes you stumble into many of these things purely as an act of serendipity. For me, it was really like that. I was stuck in Mumbai over a weekend and there were torrential rains. And there are two kinds of rains. One is the rain which is gentle. It sort of knocks at the window, falls down on your windowsill a little bit, washes the plants a little, and you sort of is gentle. This is not that kind of rain. This is the kind of rain, sometimes you have rain which is very familiar with the city. It knows its way around and knows exactly where to go. It has seen all the lanes and bylanes and knows just what to do because this is the rain of Bombay. And then that is the kind of rain. It sort of lashes on the window so loudly that you wake up. I don't know if you've ever woken up to the sound of rain, because I have. And that was the kind of rain. I woke up. I looked outside the window. It looked beautiful. I looked at my watch. It was 4:30. I went across to the kitchen. I brewed some coffee. And then usually when I get up, when it rains, I like to listen to some music, and I picked up my favorite Rag Desh and started to play that in the background. When I sat down, something magical happened. I think it was a combination, the rain, Rag Desh, and coffee. And then I went across to that bookshelf, located that notebook that somebody had gifted me. I opened that and started to scribble. I just simply wrote, I don't know why I landed up in this corporate jungle. And that was the first line of the story whose last paragraph we started with. So now the question comes that when you think about why do people write? Because it's really very distressing. The challenge of writing is that sometimes you want to write, you have an idea and you can't write it because you're in a meeting, you're traveling, you're standing, in a crowded bus, you're flying in an aircraft, somebody's trying to search you at the airport, and you get that bright idea and say, I must write it down. By the time you get to the paper, it's gone. And then it's the other way around. You have a deadline, the editor says, okay, your piece is due, we are carrying it, we've reserved the space, can you please send it in the next half an hour, and you're sitting there chewing your pencil and nothing happens. And this is really the challenge of writing. That inspiration and opportunity never coincide. It's very difficult. So one of the pieces is that perhaps from the point of view of how do you write, I discovered that the easiest thing was to write often, every single day, do it as often so that you train your muscle so that whenever you want you have creativity on tap. But it doesn't work quite that easily. But I think it has been one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life. When you create characters which are very different, if you have really created a character which is very different, it doesn't sound anything like you. They don't speak like you, they don't think like you, their accent is different, they talk about different things, they worry about different things. And for that, one of the most difficult things for a male writer is to actually think of how do you create a unique female character. And so when I started to write, I really struggled a lot to understand what does a woman feel like when something like that happens. And I'm going to play for you a small clip from one of those female characters. The situation is, here is this young man, the protagonist Abby, who is leaving home. This is the last night at the dinner table. There is mummy, there is daddy, and there's a little sister.
My father had told me what he had to the night before at the dinner table. He said, "Hey, Chotka, study hard. You must get a good job. And this course is a really expensive one. Again, if you waste this opportunity by not getting good grades, you will only have yourself to blame. Opportunity will never knock twice on your door. And it was the grace of God that got you selected to this place. And hey, don't sleep late. Try and go for a walk in the morning. This fresh air will help you to concentrate better in class."
Oh, stop lecturing him about studies all the time now. Chotka, don't neglect your health. No one will be there to remind you to eat your meals. Keep some biscuit in your room. When you're studying late at night, I know you will get hungry. Don't study till very late in the night. Get enough sleep. Here, take some more rice. Have curd every day. Acha, have you carried your sweaters? Write letters to us every week. At least we will know that you are fine. Phone calls may become very expensive. But listen, if you are not well, then call and let us know immediately.
If I can call you and tell you that I am sick, what will you do? Now listen, don't worry. I will be fine. No, ma, please, I am full. Don't give me any more rice. Ma, I'm coming back in a few months. You are talking as if I'm going away for solitary confinement or something. There are millions of students in the campus. And if they can survive, so will I. My sister pretended to reach across the table and whispered in a frequency that could only be heard by canine ears. "Shut up! Chup ho ja, bhai. Don't make it worse." Baba said, "You will make a sissy out of him. He is a man. He needs to struggle in his life. And now stop fussing over him all the time. It's because of people like you that this fellow has never learned to do anything for himself."
I have often been asked, were your parents like this? Is this the kind of conversation? And my answer is very simple. Aren't all parents like this? And that is really the whole process of writing, is to discover sometimes the real mundane in the sublime and to discover the exotic in everyday life. So now comes the other interesting question, that why people, when they write something, why do they not get it published? Because it's really tough to. Publishers don't like to publish things. This is a very strange thing I discovered as soon as I completed my novel. Because I would send off my novel to a publisher and they would write. And these are these fascinating letters they write. If you read only the first 3 lines, you would be so delighted, because they would always begin by saying, "Dear Abhijit, we received your manuscript and it was the most fascinating story we have read." So you think, great. However, we do not intend to publish it. Thank you very much for considering us. And this was really the pattern. I got so used to I could narrate it by heart anytime. So I spoke to a friend of mine and he said that, you know what, you need to really carpet bomb all the publishers, because one of them is going to accept it. So you just don't waste your time, sending it to one, getting the rejection letter, sending it to the next. You have to do it smartly. So he taught me how to use mail merge, and I mail merged, so there's this book that you get with 400 addresses of publishers, 400 top publishers. And I said, wow, why didn't I think of that before? So 400 publishers, I sent off the stuff mail merged. And that was the first day when I thought I should have done this before, because I knew in that there would be one person who would say yes. 1 week later, I got 400 responses back. I opened the first one, it was a rejection. I opened the 15th one, it was a rejection. The 99th one was a rejection. So was the 400th one. I was wrong. I thought one of those would have accepted the manuscript, and not one did. It was devastating for me. Today I can look back and laugh at it, but 400 rejection letters in a day, I think this must be a world record of sorts. It took me almost a month before I gathered courage, because it really devastates you. You think that maybe it's really bad. So it really unnerved me, and it took me a month before I picked up the courage and mailed it to the 401st one, and guess what? That's where it got accepted. The day that happened, I thought, I was so close to turning back. What if I had taken those 400 rejections and turned back? I would have missed it by this much of a whisker, and I wouldn't have known it. So really, writing is really only about persistence. Persistence when you start, persistence when you continue it, persistence when you get stopped. Because during this time, I wrote my first novel over 7 years. During this time, I moved 3 cities. I moved from Mumbai to Kuala Lumpur to New York. During this time, when I moved from Mumbai to New York, to Kuala Lumpur, my laptop crashed. I lost the draft that I had almost completed. When I moved the second time into New York, I dropped the laptop and that was gone. So I kind of thought that, okay, maybe this is God's way of telling me the script is not good enough, let's rewrite it again. But finally I thought, in order to get started, really the magic that I can leave you with is, remember, it's all about Rag Desh, coffee, and a rainy morning. And by the way, if you ever get to meet that person who gifted me that notebook, do remember to thank that person. And also while you're at it, maybe you should pick up one yourself. Thank you.